it's good to be back. It's good to be back. It's good to be back in a tailgate downtown. Yeah, it's good to be back. It's good to be back. It's good to be back in a tailgate downtown. Yeah, it's good to be back. It's good to be back. It's good to be back in a tailgate downtown. It's good to be back in a tailgate downtown.
Welcome to another edition of Tailgate TV, where we have a fun episode. Basketball season is among us, and we're here to talk some basketball, Brad.
This is the Butler head coach, Coach Dawson.
Yes.
He's been here for a few years now here at Butler and doing a great job. And I know that there's ups and downs and different things, and we want to get some opinions and some different thoughts on. There's been some changes this year, but before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about the Warsaw tournament. Just coming out of that, losing to a very good Wablo team in the championship ball game, but 2-1 in that, and coming out of the second place, pretty impressive for this young and inexperienced Bears team.
Yes, we got off to a really good start coming into that. Got some breaks our way, but we played good enough basketball to walk out. In any tournament you try to get into, you always try to leave it with a winning record, and we were able to do that and try to play for first place, and also had the opportunity to do that, but ran into the buzzsaw of those guys, big and fast and can shoot, and so you take one thing away, they're probably going to beat you on another thing. So, and we, not having much of a bench, felt like we were pretty gassed by the time we got to Saturday too. But
a lot of games in a short period of time.
Oh yeah,
and intense games.
Yes. Every game means quite a bit at that point, and any tournament, each round. And we were fortunate enough to win a couple games, but each round's going to get a little bit more, a little tougher.
Sure.
Each team you see, and everybody plays with a little bit more intensity, especially coming out at the beginning of the year. Everybody's trying to get off to a real good start. So.
Well, and you say win a couple games. If I remember right, I think those were both, running clock by the end of it. The two that we did win. So won pretty handedly. Looked pretty good in those first two matchups.
Yeah, and that was all. I think our defensive intensity in those first two games was really good, and I'm not taking anything away from the teams that we saw, but we had a pretty good run there. I know that Cole Camp lost their best player in warm-ups, which was a darn shame, because I was looking forward to that. Was kind of a benchmark for us to
see
how we do against those guys, and lost him, and we took advantage of that. It's just how it works sometimes. And we played probably that Cole Camp game was our best. That and Stockton, our best full games of being able to defend the ball on one end and then take care of it and score it on the other.
Well, and that's what impressed me. Going into this season, you kind of know what the offense is going to look like if you've watched the Bears recently.
Yeah.
You're going to see a lot of number 4.
Yeah, it's no secret.
But defensively, to see how even the young kids that we hadn't seen before in the Bears jersey, to see how they were playing as a solid team defense. The rotations were crisp. They looked sharp on defense. Even more so than expected, at least from a fan that didn't know what to expect.
Oh, for sure. And then I going into the season, there's a lot of thought process in how can we take a team that has limited varsity experience and make them competitive, and it all starts on the defensive end. So we really, for the first 2-3 weeks, have really stressed that. That's been a priority. It'll stay a priority for us. Simple game when it comes down to it. If you can keep them from not scoring and they stay at a 0 and you bank in a free throw, you still win.
That's right.
So,
you win 1-0.
One's more than 0.
1-0, right? So you can bank in a free throw and win a game if you keep them from not scoring. And we've made that a priority, and the kids have bought in a little bit to it. But
you could tell watching them.
There's still a lot of work to be done when it comes to that. It's not to where I want it to be yet, and I would like to see us that championship game was a good example of we got to do better against teams that have more than one option or more than 2 options, or can shoot it and then also beat you from inside and then crash hard. So, still a lot of work to do. That's kind of the benchmark. If you can go up to teams like that and be able to all 5 play defense, all 5 play box out, and then all 5 take care of the basketball on the offensive side. That's kind of the full game we're looking to do.
Yeah, and that's to take care of the basketball. That's another thing they seem to do well. I think I don't know about the Wobble one. I wasn't at that one. But every game that I've seen, the turnover battle the Bears have won it.
It was one, and our goal is to keep it under double digits.
And I think they've done that. I think it's been like 6, 7.
Yeah, that's what we do. And when it's in number 4's hands, a lot of the time, we're going to take care of it. And especially those off guards have done a really good job of being able to understand kind of the scheme on the offensive end and what we're trying to do. And I've been impressed, especially against some of those first couple games. But as the season moves along, people make adjustments and more film's going out there. So we're going to have to just keep working at what we think is going to be our priorities and make adjustments if we have to.
Sure. Absolutely. Talking about making some adjustments, has there been, because there's been some rule changes, we've talked about that on a previous episode, that with the 5 fouls in a quarter, and then you're shooting 2, and then everything resets going into the second quarter, which is, for me, just really different. I know some people have said, well, they've done this before in other places in college girls basketball and so forth. I never remembered that, but that's okay. I mean, I don't remember a lot of things. But
me either.
Has that been a big adjustment, or has it been something that and again, I think the kids, God bless them, because that's great. They can adapt to things so easily. It's amazing to me how quickly kids adapt. How's that been for a coaching side?
I was our first go at it when we went to the Jamboree. It's just different, but everybody's going to make an adjustment for it. I think it limits the foul shot attempts that we're going to have, so it speeds the game up, and I think that's what they're trying to do, is not so much stoppage and that. I think where it really is taking away from me personally as a coach and from the team that we have is that last 4 minutes of the second quarter where we should be shooting and we're getting into 7 fouls and shooting bonus and stuff.
Right.
But now you're only 3 fouls in, right, or 2 fouls in to that. So it's just speeding the game up. So it will take away some points, I think, in past teams that I had where we shot a lot of free throws. You won't see many games where I know Carter in the past, or as a team, we've shot 30, 40 free throws or got pretty dang close to it. It's just going to lower those numbers. And then in-game situations, I think where it'll take away from is when it resets for that fourth quarter, especially if you're trailing and now you're trying to play the foul game. You're going to have 4 or 5 fouls to give, and especially with a team like us that has a light bench, who's going to give those fouls?
Right.
We can't foul out certain guys just to try to get a game tight. So it's going to, and especially not having a shot clock, if you're going up against a good team with a lead, they're just going to burn that thing. So now you're going to be forced to maybe put in a bench guy and his only job is to foul, and you're trying to. But on the flip side, that's good for us if we got the lead.
Sure.
Right.
So, sure.
It changes the games a little bit, but honestly, with 4 games in, you really don't notice it too bad. It's just those little things that it's going to have you make certain adjustments for.
So, I don't, some coaches, and I think all coaches to a degree are goal setters, right?
Yeah.
There's certain things, and you've talked about it a little bit, maybe not use the goal word, but
priorities.
Things you want to do, and are there some goals that you would like to see kids, right, coming in? Because I think that's the difference between a lot of really good players and some, kind of that mediocre players. Are they setting goals? What kind of goals would you like to see some of the kids set? And not necessarily specifically unless you want to be, but that kind of thing.
I tag back into numbers a lot when it comes to basketball because you can use numbers and they're easy to understand and kids get them. And so, I mean, certain things that we do is certain priorities of shots on the floor and how many times we have to take them and then how many we have to make. When it comes to specific kids, I give point totals, honestly. My philosophy is, especially at this size of a high school or this size of a team, if you can have 3 guys scoring double digits, you got a pretty good shot.
Absolutely.
A good representation of it would be my first year where we had 3 guys on the floor that any one of them could go for 20.
Right.
Then your numbers go, one goes for 20 and then one goes for 15, one goes for 12. If you got a couple more chip in, So we tag into numbers a lot when it comes to point totals on the offensive end. Defensively, goals as a team would be we have to win the turnover battle for sure. We want to create more than we have, and I'm big on consecutive stops. If we get one stop, let's get it. We
You start stacking those,
and then we're just trying to stack as many stops as possible. So I don't really get real specific with goal setting, but I do like to have conversations with my players about what's expected of them. And they have a pretty good understanding. We have some guys that are good role players, and I think what's to say we haven't reached our ceiling yet.
Sure.
We have a ways to go with some of those guys, but overall we're pretty good 1 through 5 as an understanding what's expected of us, and then I talk a lot about living in the present, right in front of your eyes, and just doing the best job you can right there.
Right.
And don't worry about what just happened. Don't worry about what can happen. Just live right smack right here in front of our eyes.
That's really good.
And then just see how it kind of ends out on the backside of it. And we talk a lot about just doing little things right, because if you do enough of the little things right, the big things kind of fall into place. So
That's for sure.
that's what we do, a lot of that. We're not real specific as in coming down. I know some coaches like to use note cards and write your goals and put it in your locker and all this stuff, and that's a lot to ask, because those goals are going to change over, and they got to be fluid, because our game plan changes every game.
Sure.
The things we do change every game. What we expect from players changes every game. So we don't get real specific with that, but they all understand that. I mean, certain overall themes have to be a priority.
I always use the analogy in a lot. It's amazing how often I use this, but in eating an elephant, right?
Yeah.
You can't eat, if you think about eating an elephant,
one bite at a
it's
time.
one bite at a time. That's what we talk about,
time.
those small things, right?
Yep.
And then the
Yep.
big result
Yep.
take care of themselves. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I like to have, I wouldn't call them broad, but I would have those certain priorities every possession of, if offensively we're trying to get the right shot. It might not always be the best one, but we're trying to get one in the flow of the offense. That's just part of it. You're going to get some poor shots at some point, but we're trying to get a high percentage shot. In my philosophy, we only take 3. We take free throws, except for one guy. He's kind of a green light guy. I let him kind of take. But we take free throws, and we take layups, and we take 3-point jump shots, and that's all based off of points per possession. And those are the 3 highest point per possession shots you can have on the floor. So why don't you always just try to take those? Right. It's not rocket science, and that's kind of the numbers I tag. And when I get my huddle film, and if I get these stats, I look for points per possession. If we can average over a point per possession, and you're averaging about 50, 60 possessions a game, you're going to be in every game. I mean, a high school basketball game, if you can score 55, you got a shot at it.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, because as you're talking about your priorities and whatnot, it seems, as somebody who's just watching the games, that taking charges may be something that's a priority. It seems like the last few years since you've been there, there's been a whole, and I think this Butler team that you've had over the last few years has taken more charges than I've seen any high school team take. Is that something that's just kind of happened, or is that a priority that you guys have worked on? I mean, kind of where does that come from?
It comes from drills. We do some toughness drills, and I set it up to, it's a pretty hard drill, and if you take a charge and it's anywhere close, you're out of the drill. So a lot of kids, and we talk about it. I was when I played in high school, I had a coach come in and say, if you want to play for me, all you got to do is rebound and take charges. It's nice. That's pretty simple, and that's all I did. So, and half of the charges I took probably weren't real charges. It was just me falling down and screaming. Right? And I always tell the kids that the officials, if you put them on the spot, they like that. They like to throw that fist out there. They like to make that signal. So give them an opportunity. And we stress it as in, we stress it to the point of gap help, right? I don't want direct line drives to the basket, because that's what we do on offense. I know that's some of the hardest things to defend. That gets you in a lot of trouble, and then they're rotating on the backside. And we talk about one more step. Especially at this level of high school, if you can stop direct line drives to the basket, and if you take one more step, there's a lot of guys that'll just run you over. Yep. And if they make contact with your chest, I tell our kids, just fall down and scream. And whatever happens. And then I can argue it on the backside too. I don't like to argue with officials, but it is one of the hardest calls to make.
Yep.
And if you give them more looks at it at some point, was it Bill Parcells that said that they ain't going to throw a flag on every play, right?
Yeah.
So if you keep taking them, they're not going to call blocking on everyone. So at some point, we'll be in the right spot.
Well, and you talk about, I think on a charge, there's usually contact, and then there's usually a little bit of a sell too. And that was one thing I think we commented a couple games ago. We were broadcasting one, and I think Dylan took a charge.
Yes.
And it was like, I don't know, he falls down to. He's like, no, we call a lot of his football games.
Yeah, no, he doesn't fall down real easy. And we got guys that have played long enough for the last 3 years with me that they kind of understand it. And we just stress getting in the way of the ball handler. We stress it, like, no direct line drives to the basket. And if you are in the right spot, like I said, a lot of these kids that we play have a trouble with stopping. So, but in the course of a game, we talk about it a lot, taking charges, because the officials like to make that call. They like to make that call, so
And
give them an opportunity to make that call.
I think that's the mark of a disciplined team, though, too, is to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of kids want to over-pursue. A lot of kids want to go for the ball. A lot of kids want to go for the – so to be able to have the discipline to just slide into your spot
Just
and
take
just
one.
that I like to see that.
And I try to incorporate it in as many drills as possible. Just simple drills where, if you came to one of the practices and watched, we got a drill where we're just foot fired, and if I dribble at you, I make everybody in the team has to fall down and scream. And so I don't really make it a priority, but I've been pretty blessed with cats that understand the game well enough that if they slide their butt over there and get ran over, we got a pretty good shot of going the other direction. So
I like it. What's so important, right? And you said something, and it's different than my phrasing for it, but it's exactly right. You talk about no direct line to the basket.
Yeah.
I always used to tell my girls that to stop the basketball.
Yeah,
right.
same.
There are so many kids, and I see it at every level, even NBA level.
Yeah.
They run right beside the guy,
Yeah.
right? They just ride his hip,
Yep.
and I'm like. So there's two things that can happen in that negatively,
Yeah.
right? One, you're allowing him to get all the way to the basket. Number two, you're close enough where they can create the contact so they're going to get fouled and have a free arm to shoot.
Yeah.
Where if you stop the ball, now they have to make a decision.
Yeah.
Which way am I going to go, or am I going to go through you? And it's so important. Again, they're dribbling a basketball.
should be faster than them.
You should be faster.
You're not dribbling.
But you're busy watching them dribble. I see that all the time. They're watching the basketball. It's away from them.
Yeah.
And you're just running. Get in front, make them turn, make them do something.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah.
It's the first thing that everybody on defense should learn.
Yeah, and we talk a lot. The hardest thing to do defensively is running full speed at somebody who has a dribble.
Yep.
And we work a lot on our closeouts because we got to keep the ball in front, and that's so it steps to it. If you got a great closeout and you're a great on-ball defender, then you don't have to worry about that help side defender rotating.
Right.
You're doing your job at the point of attack.
Right.
So we stress a lot of closeout situations. And I never want to get to that point if I don't have to. And you're like that. I don't want to ever, we should be good enough defenders on ball where we're not riding people's hips because we're keeping the ball in front of us.
Right.
But it's going to happen in basketball. And then when it does happen, that's they're dribbling, you're not. Sprint, turn them. And we work a lot on all-ball defense. And if overall in high school, coming from when I played or before me, I feel like that's really kind of taken a back seat. We don't have a lot of very good on-ball defenders, but we've been blessed to have a few on this team and a couple that could be if they have the ability to. And so I think we have to use our speed and sit and guard people. And it's been good 4 games in. Cross your fingers. It's been all right.
Right.
It's early still. I mean,
Sure.
One rolled ankle away from being in trouble.
Well.
But overall, all 5 got to do a job, and that's what you said. It's just it starts at point of attack. If we can do a really good job on ball defending, we got a pretty good shot of keeping people out of the lane.
I like it.
I want to back up for just a minute, and kind of what's your story? What brought you to Butler? Where'd you come from? What's your basketball background? It's a little bit about you.
It's been a journey for sure. I grew up in a small town in the middle of Missouri, about 45 minutes south of Jeff City, in Vienna, Missouri.
Make great sausages.
Yeah, that's what everybody said. I know, not there. We did have a hat factory once, but I'm pretty sure it burned down. Yeah, that's about all we had. But then out of Vienna, graduated high school. I played through high school. I was a pretty mediocre basketball player, but I was a pretty good baseball player. But we didn't have football there. We had 2 seasons of baseball and basketball in the middle. Okay. So
awesome.
So that's this is a neat. I guess that's what they do with schools that aren't big enough to play football. And then from there, I worked construction for a year and a half, and that's what it took for me to go back to school.
I understand that.
Pouring concrete with my dad.
Yeah.
So
that's work.
Yeah, that is work.
That's work.
And so I decided I should go back to school and try to change some things. And I went to 3 different colleges. The first 2, Lincoln University in Central Missouri. Okay. And then out of Central, I got a call from a friend of mine who played baseball at Westminster College and said, we're looking for pitchers. Do you think you could come back and come down and have a tryout? And I went and had a tryout, and the coach liked me. And then all of a sudden, I was at Westminster on the baseball team there.
Awesome.
And on that move, my dad set me down and said, congratulations, I'm happy for you, but you're not allowed to transfer anymore. You got to stay here.
Right.
This is the one.
Right.
So I graduated out of Westminster College in 2012, playing 2 years of the eligibility I had left, baseball, pitched there.
Right-handed pitcher.
Right-handed pitcher.
I could tell because your hat's on straight.
Yeah. And, yeah.
Baseball guys will understand what that means.
And then I could throw it pretty hard, but I had no clue where it was going, which was all right. Everybody has a purpose.
Sure.
And so
sometimes that's better.
Sometimes people didn't like to dig in because I didn't know if I was going to hit you or throw a strike. But after that, my student teaching was at New Bloomfield, and that was my first coaching gig. I was an assistant basketball coach at New Bloomfield.
Now, where is that at?
It is just north of Jeff City.
Okay, okay.
Going towards Fulton. It's a little. They're a baseball school. Have been. They went through really good baseball in the early '90s, middle '90s.
Okay.
And I coached there as assistant basketball coach. And 3 weeks or a month into the season, it was my first coaching gig ever. A month into the season, the head coach resigned.
Oh, my.
Which they didn't have a backup plan besides me. And it was the first
Trial by fire.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, right. And boy, I tell you, we were not very good, but that was probably due to me not being a very good coach at the time. But I wouldn't change it for nothing because that forced me to actually have a bigger role. So I ran practices. They hired a guy after Christmas, but after that first month, that next month was just me. But it was a good learning experience for sure, trial by fire. And then after that, I got a job at Wellsville Middletown, and I was the head basketball coach there for 4 years.
Wow.
Little small school, kind of around the Mexico area.
Yep.
And we had a pretty good team my last year. We were 20-7 and won the district title there.
Nice.
Good for you.
Had some guys that could really play. And got beat in the first round after districts by 2 to North Mercer. Got us by 2 in Kirksville. And then after Wellsville, I did some assistant coaching. Moved to Namnoster and took a job. And then I was assistant baseball, assistant softball, and was lucky enough to be a part of 3 really good teams there that ended up winning. We won 2 districts of baseball. I was there and won trip to the Final Four.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, under Mark Carey, who's now their AD over there at Nam. And then he was also the softball coach, and we won a district there in softball. And but again, we had some talented teams. And then after that, I made the journey to Smith Cotton. I wanted to see what Class 5, Class 6 sports were all about.
Right.
Was there for 3 years, and it was a journey for sure. While I was there, I was head softball. What else was I? Assistant basketball and assistant baseball while I was at Smith Cotton. And that was a pretty good learning experience when it came to coaching at a higher level and being in that conference of the Rockbridges and the Jeff Cities and the Cap Cities. We were in that conference, and wins were tough there during that time. So it was a lot of good coaching experience. And then after that, I became friends with a guy who coached at Smith Cotton and taught at Smith Cotton named Justin Whisker.
Whisker, okay.
And he was a head coach at Northwest Hughesville during some Final Four runs for baseball. And a guy by the name of Jake Duvall worked for Justin Whisker at Northwest Hughesville as assistant baseball coach.
Connection.
So I got an in from Justin that said, Butler is looking for a head basketball coach and a PE teacher. I was teaching special education at the time.
Awesome.
So
shout out to everybody who does that.
Yeah, I did that for 5 years. That was a journey for sure. But I made contact, and Whisker kind of made contact with him, and I got to come down and interview with him and Superintendent Carter and Principal Webb at the time. He was just Coach Webb at that time.
Right.
That was before he was Principal Webb. And I was lucky enough to get this position, and I walked into a team my first year that had a lot of really good pieces, which made me look a lot better than I was.
Wow.
But and it's just been there since. We've just been trying to get better, and that's kind of how I got to Butler.
I got you.
I
like it.
I didn't realize you look like a young guy.
I
didn't realize you were as
Hey.
seasoned as you were. I mean, that sounds like quite the resume.
I've been coaching in high school, softball, baseball. I even did a semester of football coach. I was such a good football coach. They put me in the box without a headset when I was at Knob. Yeah,
Just gave us free tickets to the game.
yeah. I was basically just on the bus rides, I've done a lot of coaching. When you look back on it, I think I did the math one time. I've been a part of something like 35 different teams in the state of Missouri
Wow.
or something like around that. I think I'm in the 30 marks now.
And you're an assistant to the baseball team here.
Staff here too, right?
Yeah.
So if you do the math, I haven't added up the wins. I don't know if I want to, but
Well, add up the wins, just don't add up the losses.
losses.
Right.
Right? You try to forget about those.
Yeah.
But I've been a part of a lot of dang teams, and I guess I have been. This is my 12th or 13th year coaching in Missouri.
You're a busy young man. My
Yeah,
goodness.
too busy sometimes.
I
A
hear
lot
you.
of stress, but
Right.
yeah. It's all right.
Coming from all of that experience and everything that you've seen, and then what you've seen over in Butler the last 3 years, is there certain things that you've seen? Kind of some growth, maybe in the kids, things you've seen that have changed, or maybe even in yourself. And you could get specific about
Yeah.
Butler, just your whole experience, or kind of wherever you want to go with that.
Yeah, some growth that I've seen in the last 3 years here at Butler. I've been blessed with probably having the ability to, and I don't want to pump him up too much, but to coach the best basketball player that I've coached in my 13 years, as Carter has been. But just not that, is we've had some really good teams or really good kids in the last three. I tell this story all the time. Coming from my experiences, the only thing I've really never had to talk about at Butler that I've probably talked about more in my coaching experience for all these other teams is the ability to just come out and play hard. Right? You're going to have mistakes. You're going to come up against people that are more talented than you. It's just the nature of the beast when it comes to athletics. But I've never had to once really get after any of my teams here about playing the right way. They've just kind of known that. And that's a testament to their attitude and kind of the attitudes that were brought onto them, and probably some parenting that comes along with that.
Absolutely.
And just kind of how they were raised, that they have, when it comes to athletics, and for me anyway, they just had really strong work ethics. They understand that the only way to get better is to work at it. And
I think it's how you build winning traditions,
Yeah,
too. And I
that's
think
all it
you
is.
see that in
Yeah.
Butler football over the last
Yeah.
5-6 years.
It's just the ability to work for something that's not guaranteed, and we have not. I've been blessed enough while I was here. I wouldn't really call it growth. It's just something that's been a standard, which has been
Yeah.
nice. Because talking back to my Smith Cotton days, I felt like every game we were talking about, we got to play harder. It's just going through motions, right?
Yeah,
So-
and that's something that you don't want to take for granted.
No,
'Cause
I
you-
try not to as much as it is, but adjustment-wise, over the last 3 years, as your question says, adjustments, it's just having different players step up in different roles, which we've been blessed in my 3 years here, that the role players have changed, starters have changed, after that first year where But that comes back to we don't play a lot of guys. Our bench has always been. So we come into every season kind of with guys that have varsity experience. This is probably my first this year is my first year where we have some guys that have limited varsity experience when it comes down to it. And their expectations for them is, it's kind of a trial by fire too. So.
Yeah. Well, that's what, like you say, by that, come January, you're not a freshman anymore. You've got some time under your belt. You've got some experience. Okay, now start acting like it. That Warsaw tournament, which even there, it was surprising they were able to jump right in.
Yeah,
but you get seasoned pretty quick.
Yes, and now it's just kind of maintaining a level of expectations as we get through, and then trying to maintain some legs because we don't play a lot of guys. And there's basketball's a long season, so. It's trying to find a balance a lot of times in my last 3 years here of being able to work them to a certain level, but also understanding on the backside we got to keep some legs about us, and it's not about how we start here. It's about how we finish in February.
Right.
When the game is that if you lose, you go home. That's the most important game of the year.
Absolutely. And obviously, I was looking down through the last 3 years of our schedules, and I was I think 2 years ago we lost by 3. Last year we lost by 2. So even in those championship games of district, we've been right in there. Unfortunately, both those years just didn't fall our way. But and last year that was an exciting ball game. But
Lone Jack got us.
Lone Jack. I remember they were big.
That was a solid team.
6'5" kids, if I remember right.
One was 6'8", the other was 6'5".
Yeah.
Those teams like that, Cole Camp. Would be an example from this year. If they got some size, it causes us some matchup problems when it comes on the defensive end. And you got to see that in that championship game this year. We just had some matchup problems where we can't match up all 5 without giving something up.
Yeah.
And that's Lone Jack from last year was that way and we can probably stop one guy.
Can't stop all of them.
Can't stop all of them. So,
well, and I've said this for years that once you put that rim 10 foot off the ground, height matters.
Yeah, it does. They're
a
already closer to that basketball. It really helps.
Yeah.
But if we run into some height, it causes matchup problems. But we've been pretty blessed that we have some guys that work really hard undersized.
Absolutely,
that
really
helps us.
Impresses me every game. You've got a couple kids. I mean, really, any of your kids are undersized when they're matching up against a true post player. But you've still got a handful of them that carry their weight down there and are impressive with guys they're giving up height to.
Oh yeah. We are always, and I hate to say it, but I've never really worried about it if we see 6'5", 6. Like there's some certain things I worry about, but I feel like our work ethic that we'll be able to compete. No matter, because we do have, then it's going to be their bigs against our guards. They got matchup problems on the other end too. Somebody's got to guard this guy, right? So we've been, and then it just comes down, Dylan Davison does a great job. As hard as that kid works, especially being undersized a lot of the times, and how many rebounds he has the ability to get against guys he probably shouldn't get rebounds against.
Yeah, I think the Cole Camp game, he ended with 18 points, 16 rebounds, and 8 of 10 on the night, and had 80%. And you're like,
there you go.
That's a good night's work for a kid that's down to get some guys bigger than him.
Now that gives us a good, gives me some material to go. You just need to do that all the time.
Hey, now we know you can do it.
All the
Keep
time.
doing it. Yeah, that's expected.
Yeah, that's the expectation.
In talking about, and I was, again, very proud of those young men that you talk about that you've never had to really ask them to play hard. Because that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yes. It's more than anybody will ever understand.
Yeah.
How big that is.
What would you like to see, or if you had the youth basketball coaches of Butler in front of you, what's the one thing that you would say, hey, this is what we need to do first and foremost? Shooting obviously is important, all that stuff, but what's kind of your emphasis at the youth level? We're talking about 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th.
In big picture, the biggest thing would teach them how to play man defense, even if it's bad.
Okay.
Just keep working at it. I have had the pleasure, I guess you would say, of going to some youth tournaments and seeing a lot of zone, a lot of 2-3 zone, a lot of 1-3-1, and it gets lost by the time that certain coaches get them the defensive fundamentals of how to play man, right? It comes back to this: if they don't ever score, you're going to win every game,
Right.
and try not to worry so much about scoring the basketball. Because if you play good enough defense, you're probably going to get layups on the other end anyway. So if we could try to get – and it's tough because if you watch some of the game, it's built around scoring. That's what everybody – all these adjustments is trying to that you see at the higher levels is all trying to make it a more entertaining game, and people like to see people go off for 30, 40, 50 points or whatever it is.
ESPN highlight show.
It is, and so that gets kind of lost to where people forget how to play – defense, but that's got to be the main priority to me. As if I could, even if it's bad, because it's going to be bad. It's tough.
It is.
It's tough. It's boring to work on. Kids might not stay engaged when you work on it. We deal with those problems even at the high school level, and I'm sure they deal with it at the college level. It's not easy to work on, and it's not fun to work on, but it's something you just got to stay after, and you got to make it a priority that you got to stay in front of the basketball and be able to understand rotations and help side and gap help and all these things that come down to just staying all five playing defense at the same time. And that's got. I've just been to a lot of youth for tournaments. It's been a lot of zone, and then you're gonna see. They're going to play zone in junior high, and then when you get them in high school, you're kind of pigeonholed as a coach. You're the man defense is so bad that you can't make the adjustment to try to play it, and you don't have the time to teach it, and so then you're just going to have to play zone and hope for the best. And I just, as a coach, philosophy-wise, I just don't want to give offensive people time and space with the ball.
Right.
I always want to have somebody around you, be there on the catch.
Right.
With the zone, you're going to have times. I think if you play decent teams, if you play a good team and you play them in zone, you're probably going to make them look great.
Yep.
Because they just have more time and more space to do things.
Right.
So, and if you're going to play a great team in zone, you're going to make them look like they're going to the Final Four.
Right.
I think it just adds to it. And then there's no fallback plan. You can't go, okay, this zone doesn't work. Let's go to another zone. No, you can't go to man at that time. What do you do? You're just caught up. So you can't make a lot of adjustments. So if it comes down to it, and on the offensive side of youth, I'm going to go fundamentals of learn how to dribble with your right, learn how to dribble with your left, jump stop, and learn how to break the dang ball down.
Yeah.
Break it down. Go back to the fifth grade stuff where you stand with the ball and you just over the top of your head and underneath and over the top. Learn how to pivot. Learn how to catch it with both feet on the ground at the same time so you can pivot with either foot. And it's just those small parts of it that if you can tag all that in at youth, if you could get away from winning and losing at the youth level, and you could tag it into that of just becoming individually best basketball player, individually becoming better, small steps. Then you can take them when they are finally in high school and they all have the foundation, no matter what it was. They might have went 0-72,
right?
But you at least have that foundation to work with.
That's something that I know me and Brad talk about often. That's what your youth programs in theory is just developmental programs. They're kind of your minor league team. That's where you're wanting to develop these players so that when a high school coach does get them, okay, now we can run these things because now they know what to do. And so, if you look at it that way, kind of as you're saying, this is just a place to start putting stuff in place. And then when they get there, then it all comes together.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's the small it leads back to doing the small things right and the big things fall into place. Well, the big things are winning at a level that's important, right? I wouldn't say not winning at the youth side's important. I mean, you always want to win. You always want to win. You should always be competitive, right? But trying to win in the right way might be the best way to try to do that. Right? Winning in a way that's going to set you up, even if you don't win, that'll set you up for winning in the future.
Yeah,
right?
so important.
And I've always I've tried to talk people into doing this, but in Iowa, small school basketball used to go 3-on-3 on each side, and the defense wasn't allowed to cross half court, and the offense wasn't allowed to cross half court. I always thought, since they're starting kids, so I started playing basketball organized fifth grade, sixth grade,
right.
Later, because I've seen tournaments where it's third graders, second
they've got first and second, yeah.
It's like, I think from all the way up to fifth grade, when you can really start, developing, players have a mental capacity to understand what it looks like, is to go to that. Because, you're going to have 3 work on defense only. And You're going to have 3 only work on offense.
Right.
And you'll have it on the other end as well. And then you don't have to worry about pressure rules when it comes. If they get a rebound, everybody sprints back.
Right.
Like they do at youth.
Right.
You just have to worry about getting the ball across half court.
Right.
And nobody ever transitions. It's all just half court without 2 people around. So you can actually learn how to screen and learn how to help side and learn how to stop dribble penetration. And it's just 3-on-3 on both ends. So, and it just doesn't highlight that one kid that's better than everybody else.
Right.
Because at some point, he's got to go play defense or she's got to go play defense.
Right.
And then they're not allowed to score anymore.
Right.
So you have to have some kids learn how to score the basketball or at least defend the basketball. And I've brought
spacing,
that up.
right?
Spacing, and it's 3-on-3. I wish that I could see that, but I know that I think personally as a coach, I think that would really help the youth level. Just if you could go 3-on-3 and never cross half court.
I don't think that's a bad idea at all. I think that's, there's so many times, like you say, then you're developing at least 2 offensive players.
Yep.
And you're developing 3 defensive players at a time. But then, obviously the second half, they don't switch ends, and so they're still playing offense. Now they're going to play defense, so it's important.
You
I like
flip
it.
them, and then you're still working basketball action.
Sure.
Right? You're still working ball screens. You're still working screen away with 3.
Right.
I mean, that's how you even break down man fundamentals defensively. You make it a smaller group, and you do that same kind of action. So you can still do the actions you want. Heck, you could probably even run a zone and run a triangle if you wanted to. But that's kind of the thoughts I've always had on youth. I wish they would switch that for those younger kids, because then it's going to, instead of being one person and then trapping as soon as they get across half court against a lesser team and that ball just gets turned over and they go lay it in, is at least it looks like basketball.
Sure.
So
yeah, I get it. I like that. I think that's a good idea.
So we've kind of already hit on it a little bit. I don't want to get too redundant or repetitive, but this year in particular, your team, what do you think your biggest strengths and weaknesses are as a team right now?
Oh, that's a biggest strength right now is I think we have a few guys that can score the basketball. So offensively, I'm not real concerned when it comes to. I think our strength is being able to take care of the basketball and have pretty decent looks on the offensive end. Blessed with some kids that it's never been a problem. Weaknesses-wise, I know that it's looked good, but it's sometimes we can get overextended, not do a very good job of guarding the basketball. We're still working on defense. It'll be a priority from here on out. And I don't know what it looks like for it to be like the best in my mind. But I think there's still a lot of room for improvement, when it comes. I guess if we ever hold a team to 0, I guess we've done it perfectly.
I hear you.
I wouldn't call it a weakness right now. It's just something we got to work on.
Room for improvement.
Room for improvement.
Always room, right?
Always. So strength-wise, we've been blessed with some guards that can score the basketball, and Dylan Davidson, who works his tail off underneath, and Huck Carter, when he gets rolling, he can carry us on that end. But defensively, it's got to be all 5.
Yeah.
I think we need all 5 at all times, doing everything right. So until we get to that point, I don't know if it's ever going to be where I envision it in my head. But I guess
never content with it.
Never being content. Yeah.
So we always have a fun little ending segment.
Yeah.
We've got one ready for you. For our loyal watchers, we're switching it up a little bit. We usually do a would you rather, an over under, or a true or false. This time, special treat, we got one of each.
Okay, let's do it. Let's hit it.
Would you rather?
Yeah.
We're in the Christmas spirit.
Okay.
Would you rather watch A Wonderful Life, or would you rather watch Elf?
Elf.
Thank you. That's a beautiful answer.
Elf.
So one of those was my favorites. One of those is Brad's picks.
Oh, sorry, Brad.
I was going to say, how did you know?
Yeah.
How did you know that?
Body language. Body language.
The look of disappointment that was emanating from you.
Looked like you just missed a free throw.
Yeah. Over under.
Absolutely.
Are you going to watch over or under 4 Christmas movies this year?
Oh, I would probably go under.
Okay, didn't know if you're a big Christmas movie kind of guy.
I am, but I just don't. The sad fact about it, I don't have a lot of time. You know, I
got a lot of bus rides.
Yeah, you know,
quite
that's
get you into
usually
the
what I'm not trying to do on a bus ride. I watch a lot of film, which is sad. I know. I watch a lot of film. I think a lot about basketball, which takes up a lot of my time, and I have a 5-month at home.
Oh, good for you.
So
good for you. That's awesome.
Interesting. First one. So we're trying. Every day is an adventure there. You know, a lot of work there. But
Greatest time of your life. Having
that's
kids.
what everybody
keeps
saying. She's got a little cold right now. The first sickness. So it's interesting. But yeah, I plan, and then I do a lot of projects at home. You know, I as you guys had probably known, about a year ago, lost my dad. Mom still lives down home in the house I grew up in. So when I go home, which I'm planning to do over Christmas, I got a lot of projects. I like to tinker and mechanic and try to get things running and keep them running for her because my dad was a big component of there's about 12 or 15 steps to start anything, and the sun's got to be in the right position. It's got to be this certain kind of temperature. Your left foot has to be on the ground. So trying to get stuff in order for her and make it easier on her. So yeah, I if I had to say, I probably watch The Christmas Story every year. I would go with that one.
Another one of my top 3. I got 3 every year that I have to watch. It's always Elf, The Christmas Story, and The Grinch.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of The Christmas Story. I usually watch it with my older sister and older brother when we get an opportunity to. And I'm sure it'll be on in the background, but how much I'm watching it, I'm usually trying to sneak out to the shed most of the time.
Yeah,
good for you. That's I know your mom is blessed to have you.
Yeah.
And
depends on when she would talk to
well,
you.
of course. But that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Last one, true or false? We'll get back to basketball. True or false? College is better than the NBA.
True.
Okay.
They play defense in college.
Oh, I like it. See,
they tried to stop the ball. Hey, but I will say this.
You redeemed yourself with me right there.
I say now it looks like you made a 3-pointer. Missed the free throw.
But I will. I don't watch a lot of NBA. Not since Michael Jordan in the '90s when I was growing up. And then the San Antonio Spurs teams that were with early 2000s where they were, you know, offensively sharing the ball, and it was about the best offense you could find.
Duncan and them, yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't about just one guy.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I've been to an NBA game once, and it was in 2008, and it was at the United Center. It was the Chicago Bulls versus the Utah Jazz after the fact. But
Right.
it still was kind of tagging into my youth a little bit.
Sure.
And both teams weren't very good. And I was surprised that I will say this about the NBA game. They try to play defense, but those guys are so stinking good.
They are.
That it is probably the hardest thing to do.
Yeah,
you know,
and that's the thing. You know, kids I think don't realize is
Yeah.
when you watch those on TV and they try to emulate that.
Yeah.
Those kids, those guys are freaks of nature.
They are the 1%. They are probably less than 1% of basketball players in the world. And but at college, I think the game levels out to where everybody is athletically about the same, heights are about the same, everybody can shoot it about the same. So then you start getting back into a little bit more of, can we shut people down? And it seems like those old school college coaches that came up in it, they are defensive. Their priority is playing defense.
The great ones. You know, and you go back for years. I mean, whether it's the Bobby Knights or the or the Krzyzewskis or whoever, right? I mean, it all starts with, as you say, defending the rim and keeping people as far away from it as possible, and then the offense takes care of itself if you do the right things on the defensive side.
If you look at the guys who stay in college, it's all about, you know, I know Rick Pitino's big thing was deflections. He tracked deflections, how many times you can mess up an offense by deflecting the ball. Shaka Smart's another one.
Yeah, really good.
He gets after it defensively.
Really
and
good.
You just got to think, like, if they're practicing 3 hours a day, I would guess that they probably work on defense for 2/3 of that time.
I would think so.
That's their priority at every practice. And then every once in a while you get a special player come in. But at the college level, you're only going to have them for a year.
Right now.
You got to do So you got to do something that's going to be sustainable, and that's probably on the defensive side of the ball.
Sure.
So. Yeah, I would college over NBA right now, but I do like watching those NBA guys score the basketball though. Boy, can they!
It's impressive.
It's fun. Just 6'10" and shoot it and handle it and do everything. Like how are you supposed to defend?
It's one of those, and I try to tell Brad this all the time. It's one of those. You can't watch it as a true basketball game. It's not. It's entertainment. It's entertaining, but it's not. It's not basketball.
I always try to tag in and watch the NBA near the end where it's getting deep in the playoffs. You'll start seeing some teams start playing a little bit harder. 82 games is a long season, but when it means something to them, they try to get in the stance and guard, but. That's still college. I mean, you can turn on a lower level college game and still see, compared to a higher level college game, and still see people just working on that side of the basketball, which is nice to see.
It is. I love it. I love watching defense. That's my thing.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fun.
I appreciate you guys for having me come in.
We'd like to thank our sponsors. We got Sonic 03 Customs, Mid-America Live, CNS Graphics, Prepcast, Butler Chamber of Commerce, and Emmanuel Baptist Church. And would also like to take a minute to just thank Coach Dawson for coming on and talking to us.
Thanks for having me come in and answer some of your questions. Hope you get a little bit better understanding of what we're trying to do. And I hope we keep rolling. I mean, 3-1. I don't know how we got here, but I'm okay that we got here.
Keeps going.
Yeah. Absolutely. We want to thank you for watching another portion of Tailgate TV.